So we're starting in lesson 41. And in this lesson, we're learning about proper noun subjects with predicate adjectives. So using adjectives to describe proper nouns. Um, so here in the dialogue, we have um, a, oh, this is supposed to be a question mark. We have a question and answer. Okupuke apita? Io, okupuke alpito. Meaning, is Peter sick? Yes, he's very sick. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, okupuke apita? Radioshi? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Io, okupuke alpito. Good. Um, and then there's just one note, which is that adjectives, this is predicate. I think they mean, um, it's like it's functioning as like where the verb goes, right? So you can say, yeah. So instead of just having the adjective go, like right after the noun, this is like it's like the main part of the sentence. Yeah. So if we were saying Kepu sat down, it'd be naitangutu a Kepu. But to say he was happy, it goes it goes in the exact same place. So naififia a Kepu. Hmm. Good. Great. So here's some more practice. So we'll start with this one. Okuloto mamahi amere. Mhm. Na eloto mamahi amere. Hmm. Good. Yeah. Eloto mamahi amere. Yeah, good. Yeah, so here it's Mary is sad, was sad, will be sad with oku na in a. Okay. So here we'll have the next sentence. We'll be changing out which adjective we're using to talk about how kepu is. So, oku mo ua au pito a kepu. Good. I guess the only thing I can say about your pronunciation, Akolea, is I think your U at the end of kepu, it sounded a little like Japanese. It sounded Japanese, at least to me, rather than like, Tongan. Kepu. It kind of sounded like you said kepu or like something like that. Hmm. Yeah. Um, okay. Oku puke au pito a kepu. Bit better. Good. O ko hela ia au pito a kepu. Hmm. All right. Yeah, hela ia. Yeah, that's good. Good. O ko fia kaya au pito a kepu. Good. O ku poto au pito a kepu. Good. Um, o ko fia maria au pito a kepu. O ku lata au pito a kepu. O ko mokosia au pito a kepu. Good. I think most of these words we've already learned. I think mokosia might be new. Yeah. So mokosia means you can see it's very cold. Um, it's basically it basically is just cold. It isn't. It's not really that complicated. Pretty much any way you can use cold in English, you can use mokosia. Hmm. Yeah. So I guess I guess you're right. I guess weather is a little differently. It's we usually say. I mean, no, it can't be used to describe the weather. I guess it just doesn't get that cold in Tongan or in Tonga. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I mean, it probably. I guess in Tonga it doesn't really get cold enough to use this. So it's usually when it's as cold as it gets in Tonga, we use moko moko, which is just like a little bit less cold version of mokosia. Um, okay, we'll go to the next one. Oku whaka oho ofa a Tonga. Tonga. So this is a new word, which means beautiful. So it's really like the word is it's ofa twice with whaka in front. But you have to make sure you pronounce it ofo ofa instead of ofa ofa. Mhm. Then oku si a Tonga. Good. Next one. Nai ita au pitoa ana. Nai ita moonia ana. Good. Nai ita lahia ana. Good. Nai ita vavea ana. Good. So you can see with these three right here, um, they're all they're all really similar. They all just intensify how angry she was. So ita opito, ita mooni, ita lahi, they all mean she was very angry, right? And you can see that it was translated as very twice. And then truly here is the kind of truly where you just mean very. Um, Here we have ita vave. Vave is a new word. So ita mean or vave means quick or quickly, rapidly. And so here it's being used kind of like an adverb. where it's how fast, she was to be angered. So we go on the next one. Okupuke asione. Okutalavo asione. This is vo. Yeah, good. Okomokosi asione. Mhm. Okutomui asione. Okutalanga fu asione. Mhm. Okuirifi asione. Good. Yeah. So now we are going to practice some questions and answers. So here from the previous lesson, remembering that ne is dropped in the response. So you can see in this first one, oku ita asione, the response is io oku ita. We don't say oku ne ita, and we don't say, or a lot of the time we won't repeat asione. It's kind of a little bit too redundant to say that in the answer. Um, and so in the response, we just have io oku and then the thing he is. Um, so in English, like it is a little bit more redundant in English, where in English we would almost definitely just say yes, and that would be more fine. In English, you'd also be totally fine to say yes, he's angry. Um, but in Tongan, it's just a little bit more. It's just a little bit more required that you say he's angry. Yeah. Mm. So we'll start here. Um, Oku ita asione. Io oku ita. Oku whakaofa a mere. Io oku whakaofa. Good. Oku whiwhia pita. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oku whiakaia pita. Io oku whiakaia. Oku puke te pita. Io oku puke. Mhm. Oku helaia finau. Io. Yeah, so, yes. Mhm. Yeah, that's good. Yes, so helaia means exhausted, just completely tired out. Um, yeah, yeah. Have you said it yet? This one, helaia. Okay. Mm-hmm. Io ko helaia. Mm-hmm. Good. Como così assegni? Io como così. Yeah, so this is Jane. Mhm. I guess another thing about Mokosia is this is one of those cases where moko means cold, and it gets reduplicated into moko moko. And so it's kind of the form moko ia, meaning like filled with coldness. Um, so yes, same with heraya, right? It's the same kind of word. But in Tongan, a lot of the time, this glottal stop right here will turn into different letters. A lot of the time, when it's something else, it's an S. Um, I think there's some other ones that it can become, but I can't really think. AHH sometimes. And so that glottal stop will change, but it's still um, you can think of it as this sort of filled with coldness word. And so that's the idea. Hmm. We have okay. O confirmare apita. Io confirmare. Mm. Ai lata mele i vava'u. Uh, Here read the glottal stop is a little bit more pronounced, so it's vava'u. Good. That's yeah, much better. Io na ilatai. Yeah, yeah. It's latai. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, this is difficult because there's no glottal stop in between this, but it's still a difference where this A is emphasized. Um, and so it's kind of the way it's pronounced is without putting a glottal stop, you have to do a sort of like a unstressed A followed by a stressed A. So latai. So it gets louder, but there's no glottal stop. Okay, so Erm's here. He'll be listening in. He can't speak right now. Okay, so good. Then the next one. Naito muya tupo. Oh, sorry, there's a question. Naito muya tupo. Io naito mui. Yeah, so it means fall behind, which means to be late. Okay, glad you could come for the beginning. Goodbye. Good. Yeah, tokusio. That's a very good usage. Okay, so move on next. Longowa'a sione. What do you know? Oh, longowa'a. Longowa'a is loud or noisy. So longo kind of means to hear or like to make a sound. Yeah, and so it's kind of a variant of ongo, which is which is more normally used to like to hear or to feel. Um, and then sort of this just means like I don't know. It kind of just changes to noisy. Good. Yeah, like fanongo has the ongo in there. Io na ilongo wa'a. Nai tai lata Devita. Io nai tai lata. Good. Yeah, but you're still not you're not doing like a aspirated T, so that's good. I mean, you're doing a really good job. I don't really, I'm not sure exactly how would I even, what, how to even correct it. Yeah, you're having trouble in the beginning, like you would expect any learner. Yeah, like when I was learning this, everyone, like me and everyone else I was learning with, um, was very bad at pronouncing. Yeah, so asked a question about the beginning of this word. Um, yeah, so on its own, it's pretty much considered a swear. And so it really just means like without, yeah, lacking. Um, and so it's used in a lot of words. Um, but it's just careful to be delicate around using it by itself. Um, yeah. But yeah, anyways, Tailata is not content without any contentment. Homesick, in other words. E fifia kepu. Io e fifia. E moa seni. Io e moa. Yeah, busy. Yeah, busy or like put under um like task, like to have something to do. E fia alo atu po. Mhm. Io e fia alu. Mhm. E fia Maria mere. Mhm. Io e fia Mari. Mhm. So we discussed most of these already, but Anna was one of the names, which is just I like yeah, and I feel like nowadays people are really familiar with Anna being a girl's name, especially with like Frozen Anna being called that, although it was spelled with two N's. But I have a cousin named Anna as well. Okay, so yeah, then we learned Whakaofa, where this O is important to remember. Moko, yeah, yeah. So that happens a lot in Tonga. It's just because it's easier to say, pretty much. Mokosia, I explained this how that S is um or this sia is kind of the ia suffix that we learned before. So to be cold, cold itself, or the state of being cold. Talavo. Oh, I forgot that this was a new word. So we saw talavo. It means handsome. Um, yeah. Although with women, like faka ofa ofa might be used more. Yeah. Um, but yeah, women can be used to be called handsome, just like handsome in the past, used to be used for anyone in English. And that's kind of how talavo is used. So vave is that's a new word. Yeah, so we learned that with itavave, quickly, fast. Um, and this can be used as an adverb or like as an adjective, like someone can run quickly or they can just be fast. Something can happen quickly. Um, so yeah, me'elele. Hmm. Yep, exactly. Okay, so on to chapter or lesson 42, Sonifawa. Here we learn the definite article a with common noun structures, and we also learn more about the definitive accent or definite accent. Um, so here's the dialogue. O kuvangata ele soni. Yeah, whangatae. Mm, mhm. Yeah, so if you kind of just imagine it like I, o whangatae lesson. And this should be I for some reason in this book, they have lessoni spelled without a long E a lot. Like I've noticed it very, very often, even though he clearly makes a point to spell it like this. And it is lessoni, it's not lessoni. Mm. Anyways. Io, o whangatae o pito. Mhm. O ko angalele whai ako, io, o ko ofa o pito. Mhm. So, yes, so we can see here in the dialogue, they don't have the a before the e. In written Tongan, though, you do still put that in, or like in formal written Tongan, obviously, like text, speech, it won't. Um, so it'll come before the e in common noun phrases, but yeah, like Shumway says, in spoken language, people never say it. So grammatically, we expect "Oku whangata ai lesoni," right? But we always hear, yeah, "Oku whangata ai lesoni." Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the first one. And then, whoops. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's just it's kind of like just because the I is getting reduced down to A, so it's already sort of a small part. But yeah, it's not like it's not accented, is what I'm trying to say. Mhm. So we learned about the definitive accent in lesson 16. If you remember that, um, yeah, tokoni kia pita, but when you have a he or an a, it moves the stress to the end. So tokoni ki ko. So yeah, so you usually would never see at the end of a proper noun unless it was like tohi apita, right? Or apia mele. So the same stress occurs in the last syllable of the noun phrase. So this is what I was talking about just now, preceded by the definite article a, which I guess it's not really shown off very well in the dialogue. But when the definitive accent, yeah, this is important. So we haven't really seen this in the book yet. If the definitive accent f falls on a word, yeah, it breaks up. So we can see dokta is spelled like this. Yeah. So na aloe dokta. Oh, sorry, that wasn't a question. Na aloe dokta. Dokta. Yeah, I mean like dokta. It doesn't really sound ever like ta. Dokta. It's more like instead of like raising the pitch a lot, it's more I guess about the volume. Dokta. Hmm. And then here we have do alohe ka. Naku foki mai he fa. Hmm. And so here what we kind of observe here if with the long vowel that also gets the definitive accent, we write it like this, but kind of functionally it sounds like just an even longer long vowel. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, and I think I have like a paper. I think. Mhm. I read something somewhere. Someone kind of did the same thing where they measured it, and yeah, they found the exact same thing that you found, where the definitivized long vowel is like is about that much longer. It's like three short vowels. Okay, so here we're gonna have some practice with the definitive accent. So it's important to make sure that you're moving the stress from the second to last to the last. So practice that. Nai alo e tamasi I. Nai ako e tamasi I. Nai alo e fai nai whaikawe tamasi I. Nai mata whaive tamasi I. Yeah, it's hard. Nai whangota e tamasi I. Nai whenga e tamasi I. Hmm. I guess yeah, the E could be a little less pronounced. So you could almost think of it as the E right here. You can almost think of it as like being part of the next word and just like itamasi. Um, yeah, because you don't want it, it doesn't stand out that much at all. O ko toko ni lele whai ako. O ko vainga lele whai ako. Mhm. O ko tarano lele whai ako. Mhm. O ko taipe lele whai ako. Mhm. Yeah, and one of the things to mention about the definitive accent is it's the case when Tongans read Tongan, and I've said this before, that they tend not to do it, right? It's something they do unconsciously as they speak, and when they're reading out, because they don't have like the whole sentence in mind before they begin talking, um, they're not they don't properly put the definitive accent on, and it's the same like my instinct is to not do this. I have to like think really hard to or not really hard, but I feel like really think about it to make sure I put the definitive accent on the end. And so if you're listening to no, yeah, it would just come naturally. And so if you hear Tongans just speaking naturally, you'll hear it. But it's important, like if you're looking for resources to like listen to actual natives speak, um, you want to make sure they're not reading something because it's very likely that they won't sound natural and they won't be putting the definitive accent on. Mm-hmm. So mhm. Okay. Naano ki whētai hine. Mhm. Naano ki whē porisi. Yeah, yeah, try again. Naano ki, naano ki whētai hine. Good. Naano ki whē porisi. Mm. Naano ki whē pasi. Yeah, that was good. Like I like that was perfect with not like you didn't over emphasize the A. Hmm. Naroki fe tokta. Naroki fe nesi. Nai alo e tahi hine ki kolo. Um, oh, right, it's tahi ne. I didn't even see that. Yeah, it's weird because when you're speaking Tongan, if you have a particular girl in mind, right? You'll kind of just if like natives will naturally just go tahine because in their mind they think of the particular girl that they're referring to because it's like a definitive that girl, right? The girl. Um, and so that comes out. But when you're reading, it's hard because you don't actually have sort of that thing in your mind to focus that onto, and so you kind of have to do it artificially. But like when you're speaking it, you're kind of like focusing your thoughts kind of onto the definitive thing you're thinking of, right? Because when you're saying this, you're thinking of the girl specifically that I'm thinking of, and that's why that's kind of what differentiates it from because yeah, because like in Tongan you can have the definitive article but not the definitive accent, and it kind of is sort of this in between. You know, it's not like ha tahine or itahine, it's itahine, which just kind of means like the girl, but kind of any girl, any of the girls. Um, and so, yeah, so it's I did mess up pronouncing that because it's na alo tahine kikolo, tahine kikolo. Mhm. Na alo tahine kifisi. Na alo tahine ki tonga. Mhm. Na alo tahine ki tahi. Mhm. O konofe fe fine. Yeah, there's a missing e. Mhm. Mhm. O kako, yeah. O kako fe fine. O ko ngawi fe fine. Yeah, good. O ko fiako fe fine. O ko kai fe fine. O ko nofo e nesi I kolo. Or o ko nofo e nesi I kolo. Mhm. O ko ako e nesi I kolo. Yeah, o ako. It sounded a little bit like ako. Good, yeah. It does not. Mhm. O ko ngao e nesi I kolo. Mhm. Yeah, you did. O ko sai e tamasi I he ako. Mhm. O ko sai e tamasi I he ngā we. Two of them, yeah. Ngā we or ako? O ko sai e tamasi I he ako. Mhm. O ko sai e tamasi I he ngā we. Mhm. O kusai tamasi I he whai wā. Good. Um, simple substitution and transfer. Oh yeah, so all of these we were changing the no? I don't know. All these had verbs. I guess now this one we're doing predicate adjectives. Um, o ku whangatae le soni. O ku whaingofu e le soni. O ku mahino e le soni. Mhm. O ku angalele au pito e tahine. Oh, yeah, angalele is um yeah, like a disposition. So it just means good-natured, pretty much. Or nice as it's translated. Okay. O ku pota o pit oh, okay. O ku angalele au pito e tahine. O ku pota o pito e tahine. Mhm. O ku whaka ofa o pito e tahine. O ku whakapiko piko o pito e tahine. O ku puke au pito e tahine. Mhm. O ku ifa mone me kai. Yeah, specific plate of food. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with sort of the body language of the person speaking Tongan. So like ideally, like it says at the beginning of the book, Shumway intends for you to have a native speaker, and he's very adamant. Like it has to be a native speaker, and they have to be in the room with you, and you have to pay really close attention to the way they move their body as they speak. And so this is obviously less than ideal. The main thing being I'm not native, and you also can't see me. But if you could see me, I don't have like native mannerisms. Um, mhm. But like a lot of the time with with definitive um, noun phrases, there may be some sort of like indication, like maybe like a nod towards the thing they're talking about, or like sort of a gesture. Um, just because, yeah, it kind of goes along with you're talking about this specific food. And so this one's like, "Ko ifu moni ufi." Yeah, ufi. Mm-hmm. Ko ifu moni ka. Ko ifu moni poaka. Good. Okay, here we have question and answer with Q. Let's try to do what we did last time where I hide the answer. So I'll ask you the question and you respond using the cue given. Um so actually I'm seeing a typo in the actual book. Wait. Oh no, never mind. So yeah, so Yes. So let's look at this first example. So the question is oko ifoi me akai, and because the Q is aupito, it's oko ifo aupito. Yeah. So you already know the answer, but oku ifo mekai. Good. Oku poto e tahine. Good. Oku mahino e talanoa. Good. Oku whangafua e le whakatonga. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the response is just ia oku whangafua. Period. Na aluki fe whai ako. Great. Oku nofo I fe fine. Mm-hmm. Oku I fe pule. Great. Yeah, you got all those right. Um, okay, so we learned a lot of like adjectives this chapter. So you already asked me about angalele. So it's just like you said, it's anga, which is like disposition. Yeah. And then lele. And so we get good natured, hence nice. Is this the first time we've seen That's weird. No, Mm. Yeah. So here we have whangataa and whangofua. Ngataa and ngofua are sort of these suffixes that represent difficulty and easiness. And so here, sort of, we don't really say ngataa and ngofua by themselves to mean difficult and easy. Ngofua by itself, you can say it. Ngofua by itself means permissible or like allowed. And so this phi just means to do. I'm not sure if we've learned it by itself yet. Um, yeah, so this is just like the do verb. You'll see it. I is kind of like a variant of it, like I with a glottal stop. Well, no, you would never say I ngata. But in other places where you see I like used in Tongan, it kind of means the same thing. It just means like do it. Like the way phi and I are used are usually very similar, and in a lot of the cases you wouldn't use like you couldn't use both. Um, I mean, there are cases where you could use both and they would mean two different things. Um, yeah, this is also kind of taken on the same sort of connotation that um, where in English to do a person means to have intercourse with them, and so it can kind of be it's kind of considered a rude word sometimes just because it has that connotation. So yeah, it's important, especially to not say it um, inappropriately, but like it's just it's important to be careful around this because it is easy to misuse it in a way that sounds rude. But yeah, so whaingataa, we've learned talangataa. Yeah, so we learned talangataa, which means disobedient. Yeah, talangofua. Yeah. So you can see by just replacing phi with other words, we get more pairs of words. So Whangata'a, whangafua, difficult to do, easy to do. Talangafua, um, like able to be told what to do. Whangata'a, unable to be told what to do, hence obedient, disobedient. And you can kind of make your own words like this, like a lot of different things. Um, yeah, like like there are some that people might look at you weird for saying because like no one ever says it. Um, but in a lot of cases, leangofua. Yeah, I think people would know what you were saying. Yeah, a lot of the time though, sort of I guess the default is to use this. So you could say like whangata'a honolea. Whangata'a honolea. So that would be like it's saying is difficult. So like it's hard to say. Um so yeah. I don't know. I guess it's hard to find like a list because it's at the end of the word, so it doesn't really appear in order in a dictionary. Um but if you have a searchable one, you can see all the different words that is a kanta at the end. And then ifo, I didn't realize that was first shown in this chapter. It just means delicious. Ifo. Um Ma'a. Yeah, so ma'a is cheap and or meaning inexpensive. Ma'a means clean. So it's the reduplication of clean, and that kind of just means like cheap and inexpensive. Um, it's probably like a different definition of ma'a that is the base that's getting reduplicated. Um, but yeah, I guess you can kind of see how they're related just because if something's clean, there's like less stuff on it. I don't know. Mahino. Oh yeah, yeah. So it's understandable or yeah, intelligible. Kiateo. O mahino kiateo. Or kiao. um, and this is a good example of a word you can put ngata'a and ngofo at the end of. Mahino ngata'a, yeah, and yeah, mahino ngofo. So yeah, easy to understand, hard to understand. Mamafa is the opposite of ma'ama'a, I guess. It's heavy or expensive. Yeah, so mamafa. Um, yeah, so expensive but also heavy. Nesi is the English word nurse. Ofa is kindness or love. So you'll see this. Yeah. Yeah, like at its base, like this is the word for love. If you're translating love into Tongan, 100% of the time it's ofa. Um and yeah, so it just means like kind as in loving is one of the translations. Well, yeah, you can use it to mean like a noun as in like love. Like I no, I mean like love as a noun. Like kau ofa. People will say ofatu, my ofa. Yeah, I guess it just means people you love then. That wasn't really a word I used. Maybe I just didn't really pay attention. Not sure. But yeah. And there's a bunch of other words that kind of have this. So obviously we saw whakaofofa has this in it. Um, Ofeina, I think, is the same thing. This means like beloved. Yeah. And then polisi is very obviously policeman. And then poka. Yeah, so it sounds like pork. I think this comes from a Dutch word, probably. Um, yeah, you'll see a few words that come from languages other than English, and it can be confusing sometimes. But yeah, but it's the word for any like pig, not just the meat. Okay. So lesson 43. Sonifatolu. We finally see ikaike with subject nouns. So okupuke finau. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah, so I said okupuke finau. Ikai ke puke. Mm-hmm. So ikaike, which is not ikaite, which is what is learned from earlier chapters, is the proper negative for subject nouns, or it's the negative for anything where there's not a preposed pronoun following the de. So, mhm. Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. So yeah, so you can have na ikaite o fi alu where we use de. But once you change that, once you get rid of that u and you're just saying na ikai ke fi alu a pita, you can see that it changes because we're not criticizing it. And then similarly, nai kai ke fialo e pule. So that's with a proper noun and a common noun. It's the same thing. Um, yeah. And okay, here we can practice that. Um, Nakai ke hao asione. Ke kai ke tokoni a mere. O ke kai ke fia mari asione. Na kai ke fia kaya tamasi i. Mhm. Yeah. So if you emphasize it, mhm. Yeah, and just by emphasizing it, it'll kind of just naturally sound like tamasi i. Yeah. Um, Nakai kai ke nakai ke tau mui tamaiki. Mhm. Tau mui tamaiki. Mhm. Nakai ke moet pule. Good, yeah. O ke kai ke ose ngawe. Mhm. Here, whoops, substitution. Um, Okikake I heni apita. Okikake I api apita. Okikake I kolo apita. Mhm. Okikake sai me kai. Okikake ifo me kai. Okikake osi me kai. Mhm. And with this one, I assume the meaning's evident. Yeah, like it hasn't been finished eating. Ikake haʻoe porisi. Ikake haʻoe whaiwhakau. Mhm. Oh, yeah. So whaiwhakau is a new word. Um, usually, oh, okay. Yeah, so it's minister of in a um in like a Protestant sense, Protestant Methodist. Um, well, no, so in the Methodist churches, which are the by far the majority church in Tonga, there's like four different Methodist churches. Um, there's like the Church of Tonga, the Free Church of Tonga, the Wesleyan Church, and the Free Wesleyan Church. Um, those are all. I mean, I don't think those actually are. There's like Siaswasiana Hoeki. Yes, so that's the other thing. So in our church, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's Whaiwhakau. So the Mormon missionaries are called Whaiwhakau in Tonga. Um, yeah, so it's like a different position. Like when you compare the two churches, um, I like the Whaiwhakau in the Methodist sense is kind of like sort of just like the minister of like a church, so like kind of like the guy in charge. Whereas the missionaries in our church are not really the people in charge. That's kind of like the bishop. So like each village has a bishop, pretty much. Um, and so it's the same word, but it's used for people who are kind of on different levels, but still, yeah, yeah. So in the Methodist, the person up there preaching is the Haipakal. Yeah. Hmm. And then let's see. E kake haʻoe tokta. Mm-hmm. Na ke whainga e tupo a tupo. Mm-hmm. Na ke nofo a tupo. Na ke tokanga tupo. Na ke ako e tupo. Mm-hmm. Na ke mahino e le soni. What was that? Yeah, you didn't. It was good. Mm-hmm. O ke mahino e tala noa. Mm-hmm. O ke mahino e whehui. Mm-hmm. Ke mahino e CV. Mm-hmm. O ke saia te vita ia mele. Mm-hmm. Yeah, saia, ofa, and ita. So all these words you'll see take ia or yeah, e. Yeah, so that's kind of just yeah, you'll just have to that's just something you hear a lot of Tongan and get used to it. There's not really there really is no good reason or really good way to go from English to understanding these better. Because like I guess like Tongans probably in their heads sort of separate these out into like that they understand just intuitively that this is an E. This goes with E, and the other ones go with key. Yeah, they probably understand that intuitively, but for me, it's just something I had to just hear a lot of, and it's still something I could get wrong. Like I don't know, I could easily be getting a lot of them wrong, but here, saya often ita are definitely E. So we have okay kaki saya tevita e mele. Okay kake ofa tevita e mele. Okay kake ita tevita e mele. Good. And conversion drill. Convert the following into negative statements. So let's do that then, because the idea is to see if you can convert it. Okay, this is what I can do. Okay. Titakomata hitolu. Actually, hold on. Let's look at the response. Right. Yeah, so we just kind of put a ikai. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oku, yeah. Okufangata aleso ni. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was right. Okikaki fangata aleso ni. See? So you got that right. Na hot wapita. Um, Here it's not a ikai. Oh, whoops. Mm-hmm. Naifo ika. Mm-hmm. Welcome back, Pradyushi. So in this chapter, we've been looking at ikaike, which is how you say sort of like the opposite. So what we're doing is we're looking at this statement or response. So if you say te maukamata he tolu, this means we will start at 3 o'clock. At 3. So in order to say we won't start at 3, you have to put e ikai in front of it. Yeah, so te marks the future. So te mau means we will. Um, yeah, so this te becomes an e instead. So e ikai means will not. Will not will start at 3. It's kind of how it is. So we won't start at 3 is the response. So we looked at this as well. Oku fangata ai lesoni. The way to reverse that is after oku, we say ikai ke. And this reverses it. So if you look at those two sentences, they're exactly the same, except we've added ikai ke before fangata. Yeah. So, do you think you can figure out the negative by just saying the first part? S- Yes, exactly right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the only thing is you pronounced ifo, it's yifo without a gloss up. Yeah, just like that. Um oh, on the A. Yeah. Ifoika. Yeah, so this whole section right here, there's no gloss up, so it's ifoika. Mhm. But yeah, but you got the structure of the sentence correct. So here we have Akoleo, you do this one and then Radio can do the next one. Right. For some reason this um there we go. Yeah, I don't know. For some reason there was no hanging indent. That's what I was concerned about. There we go. Um, yeah, right. Uh, okay, so Red Yoshi, this is for you. Okusai amele iasione. Mm-hmm. Correct. Okay. Okole. Okupuke tamasi. Good. Red Yoshi. Okusai ta hine he tohi. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Tohi. Yeah, the definitive accent in French marks the accent, right? Anyways, does it? I don't know any French. What is this in French? What is the thing on top of it do? Yeah. How does it change the pronunciation when you have this in French? Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Okay. Um, let's see. So Akale, I think you're next. Na imari e faiva. Yeah, great. So yeah, you guys got all those right. Zoom out again. Okay. So in this chapter, we learned faifikao, which means minister. And so this is it's a two-part word. So fi to do, and then fikao means commandment. So the word in essence means one who keeps the commandments of God, basically. And so that's why they're like the minister, like leader of a religious group. So we have Mari. We've seen Fie Mari, which means like splendid. Mari by itself, or like Fie Mari means contented, is what I meant. Mari means splendid or excellent or extraordinary. And it says bravo at the end. People will just say Mari and like while they're applauding, like, oh, that was great, like bravo. Hmm. And then we have Tokanga, which means to be careful or pay attention. So it really kind of means to pay attention, but you use this word to mean like be careful, like yeah, like pay attention to your surroundings, right? Yeah, watch out. And so that's Tokanga. Let's see. Okay, let's do one more chapter. So lesson 44, lesson 45 fa. So here we finally see the fourth main tense marker, cool. And we're also going to see osi, which is super important, which is used for mean like already, like something that has already been accomplished. So you can see that used in the dialogue here. Ko osi ha'u pita. Ha'u. Yeah, that sounds hard. Mhm. Ha'u. Mhm. Good. And then dekiai. So dekiai is a new. Oh, I don't know if it's in the notes. Okay, it's not in the notes. Dekiai is a new thing that we're learning. It's basically just you just memorize this as a single unit. That means not yet, right? So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the way I use is kind of very hard to understand. It's something that doesn't really translate well. Um, but like if you look at the vocabulary, it's kind of just dekiai as a single vocab word meaning not yet. So it's kind of just it's not super important to understand what exactly the I is doing here because most Tongans they just think of dekiai as a single unit. A lot of them will even spell it like this. Yeah, dekiai, not yet. So it's idiomatic in that sense where um it's like that. So kuo, yeah, deki by itself would be very awkward sounding. So yeah, I guess you can think of it as just something that needs to be there. Yeah, yeah. In a lot of cases, it fills absences. So kuo, where we see kuo osi, it's the last of the four tense markers. It functions, you can use it in the same. So you can see these four. It's just the same sentence. Oko poke pita, e poke pita, nai poke pita, kuo poke apita. So we can see over here the meanings. So oku is sort of the present or habitual. So Peter is sick. Epoke, so Peter will be sick. So future tense. Na epoke, Peter was sick in the past. And kulpoke, so has become sick. So yeah, so it's very very similar in a lot of ways to the perfect in English, and I don't know too many other languages that have or yeah. Um, the perfect tense represents the event or state as having happened or having come into existence. So either whether that has just happened or in a past or future time, as indicated by the context. Yeah. So if you're telling a story that happened in the past, right, and you're constantly in the past, if you use cool all of a sudden, you're talking about something that in English we'd say had happened, right? Like the past perfect. Um, but in Tongan we just have the one tense marker, right? And so yeah, hmm yeah, exactly, exactly, yeah. So yeah, so in English we do differentiate that we say has happened, had happened, will have had happened. Um, but here we just have cool. So we'll be able to see that in action. So we have this, which is a very, very, very common thing to ask people in Tonga, which is Koki Oskai. Hmm. Hmm. So the thing about Osi is this is one of the things where this I at the end is like really, really not said a lot. It yeah, so it almost always just sounds like os. So oskai. Mhm. And we rarely actually hear this. So like we'll hear it in like osi osi, but like if it's two words like os koki os osi, I don't know. It's basically just something that it'll just sound like os a lot. Um and then we'll see it in the next one. Koki osai, koki osai. Mhm. Koki osivi. Yes. So yes. So this OC is you can see a lot of the time it's already. But of course yeah. Hmm. So you can see like in English we can say already before or we can say yet after. So this could obviously also say are you already well? Um, yeah. So a lot of the time when you do use like we'll be drilling this a lot in this chapter, but kuo and osi come together a lot. Um, just because of this sort of have you already finished whatever. And then we'll see yeah, so sivi. Koki o sivi. Hmm. So it's spelled in Tonga in Tongan the I sometimes goes away when it's at the end of a word. And so this is one of those cases where usually when people are speaking at a normal pace, that I kind of disappears. So it just sounds like os. Um, I think that might just naturally happen. It's not something that people really talk about when they're describing Tongan, but it might actually be happening. Mhm. So yeah, so with this we have an SI followed immediately by another SI, but it'll sound like Koki Osivi. And I mean like Koki Osi CV, I don't know, it kind of just sounds like it, yeah. So just like Osivi. Hmm. That did sound right. Right. Okay, so we'll look at some other ones. Um Kos ma konao. Hmm. Hmm. It's good. Kos inuao. Mhm. Yeah, great. Kos kaukawao. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ow. Yeah, good. Kostomuyao. Mm-hmm. Kosaluapita. Mm-hmm. Koshawapita. Um, this shouldn't be. Yeah, good. I just needed to fix a typo. Um, Koskaya pita. Mhm. Kosi mate pita. Yeah, I was speaking slower because he's dead, and so the guy kind of gets. Mhm, mhm. Kosi malo loa pita. Mhm. Yeah, so malo lo is a very used euphemism for to die, and so that's why to translate it, we've used another euphemism, pass away. Yeah. Um, ko ita whai ako. Mhm. Ko whoku mai, ko whoki, oh, sorry. Ko whoki mai whai ako. Ko mari whai ako. Mhm. Yeah, so here we see kuo being used without osi. She has become, because these would make sense to use osi with. I mean, unless, teacher's already been married, that would still make sense, I guess. Yeah, 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 ko mari whai ako. So you're just more practice. Ko vele fale. Vela, vela, right? Kos, mm, kos hokotai mi. Hoko. Yeah. Ko tutuko e ako. Mhm, mm, mhm. Oh, yeah. So fogotu'u and tutuku are two new words that we're learning this chapter. So you can see it's translated as let out. Tutuku is kind of the root word is tuku, which means to end, to finish. And when we're talking about, yeah, no, it's a reduplication. This is kind of just we use this word when we're talking about the school year. We use tutuku. Um, Sort of like like a meeting, like a singular meeting or like a singular class. We would kind of just say tuku. But because it's sort of like it's finished for like the year, like it's done for the year. We use tutuku to kind of signify like because it kind of has that more connotations like it's done for a while, and it was going on for a while, and now it's going to be done for a while. Yeah, and then here we have the opposite, which is fokotu'u. Fokotu'u kind of means to like establish. Yeah, yeah. So tu'u means to stand, and so we have this like establish, like make to stand up or begin, commence. And so this is the word used when we're talking about the school year as well. We already learned a different word for start, which is kamata. But for the school year, we use fokotu because it's kind of just right, yeah, for a single class. Like if you're going to math class will kamata, and then it'll tuku. Mhm. And then we have. Oh, I guess we haven't repeated this yet, have we? Or did we? Ku fokotu e ako. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, fokotu e ako. Ko moho e me kai. Yeah, yeah. Moho. Mhm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Moho e me kai. Yeah, the only thing is the A is not it doesn't stand out very much. So instead of like ko moho e me'ekai, it's ko moho e me'ekai. And it's really quiet. Moho e me'ekai. Moho e me'ekai. Yeah. Moho e moho e, like it gets quiet because it's this singular unstressed word. Yeah. Um yeah, and so moho is a new word we just learned. It means like to be cooked or done, but this really only refers to food. Um, and then ko foke pore ako. Great. Yeah. So here, this is a question and response, but the response is yeah every time. That helps. Koskai. Hmm. Um, Here let's do. Okay, let's read all the questions first, and then I'll go back and I'll ask you these questions, and I just want you to both to respond with dekiai. So first, let's practice the questions. Koke oskai. Yeah, just the first one. Koke osleki ashone. Mhm. Koke tohi kia mene. Mhm. Kosfogato e ako. What is it? Mhm. Kosmoho e mekai. Moho. Mhm. Mhm. Koskaukala tupou. Ko soalo e tokta. Mhm. Okay, now let's practice responding. Tekiai. Tek, tekiai, tekiai, tekiai. Tekiai, tekiai. So I'm gonna ask you these questions and you just respond with tekiai. So ako lea koke o sky. Red Yoshi koke o slek yes ne. Ako lea koke tohi kia mele. Red Yoshi kos fokoto e ako. Ako lea os mohe me kai. Red Yoshi kos kaukaua tupo. Ako lea kos alo e toketa. Great. So we learned fokoto. Um, yeah. So it's establish, start, commence, as is in reference to school. You could also like suggest something, so you would like fokotu'u, a suggestion, which is kind of just like bring up. Yeah. Hence like we have like stand in there. So hoko. Um hoko. Cause hoko e taimi is where we saw it. Yeah, so we only saw it once. So the translation was the time has already come. So hoko just means to happen, right? Or to occur. Um, and so yeah, it's a bit of a I don't know. It's kind of a weird word. Hame na hoko. Hame na hoko. Yeah. Um. So yeah. So it's just like what happened. We have kaukau, which we learned with kaukau tupo. So yeah. So kaukau means to bathe or take a bath. One thing to note. So it's not this. It's kakao. So this is bathe. This is swim. Um, but even though that's the case, yeah, cow cow. Um, cow cow tahi means to swim in the ocean, but it's kind of like cow cow tahi kind of refers to just like sitting around in the reef. So it's kind of like they're just bathing in the ocean. So like when people go to the beach today, just like kind of in groups, they kind of just sit in the ocean, just like talk and play around. They'll call it cow cow tahi even though they're not going to bathe. So cool is the tense marker that we learned. Malolo is the euphemism for die, but in general it just means to rest. Yeah, fale malolo, restroom, not death house. Moho means to be cooked or finished, or in reference to food only. Puleako. Pule is the boss, which we've already learned. And so puleako, yeah, is headmaster or principal, whichever you're familiar with. So here's tekiai, which we practiced just now. Yeah, we just remember this as a single unit. That means not yet. And then, of course, we have to tuku, which is the opposite of fogotu'u, in reference to school. Till it out. And fogotu'u. Um, that's a good question. It could be some sort of like corruption of Waka? Possibly. Let me see if there are any other words with focal. F-O. Yeah, so the dictionary says occasional variant of faka. Huh. Yeah, so focal, focololo, especially fine. Um, Especially fine kie, especially fine. I forget what kie is. The definition says especially fine kie uses a fetau for a royal corpse. Yeah, there aren't a lot of words that start with focal. There's probably like 20. Fokotu'u is the main one. Yeah. Yeah, but basically fokotu'u is like the one like really useful word I even see at all. Yeah. A lot of them are kind of like obscure. And a lot of them are just variants of this, like fokotu'u tu'u, fokotu'u tu'u. It's the college semester itself. It's not me who's doing that because it's yeah, it refers to the school year itself, not the students. Um, but yeah, so that's the last chapter we'll look at since it's been in an hour and 40 minutes already. Are there any other questions? Okay. Yeah, I don't. I'll try to figure out some way that we can practice because I'm gonna need to like figure out like things to talk about and how that'll work. I have some ideas, like because the way I learned Tongan, yeah, the way I learned Tongan is they gave us this book and they gave us like another like book that they had printed out that had like a bunch of like phrases in it and like special words. And so I literally knew no Tongan at all, zero. And I showed up to the place where we were learning it on a Wednesday, and they said on Friday we're bringing in a native speaker of Tongan who doesn't know English. You have to teach them a lesson. So they gave us like basically a half of a day, a full day, and then another half of a day to figure out how to teach someone a lesson who didn't know English, and only knew Tongan. It, and so I think that that could be helpful is to like have some sort of task. Like I need you to talk about this particular subject, and I will pretend to be someone who doesn't know English. Um, See if you can figure this out. But I'll need to like figure out something that's like realistic, because for us obviously because we were training to be missionaries, it was teach them about what our church is or whatever. So I'll find some other thing that we can do. I think that'll be helpful. And I think that's what Nima that would be helpful for Nima as well. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So I'll work on that. I'll find like a task and like write out exactly what it needs to be and how you should prepare for that. And then I'll ask if I'll see who wants to participate. Um. Okay, but yeah. So next lesson will be we'll start with lesson 45, where we'll be introducing mo, which is and or with. But yeah, that's all for this lesson. Thank you guys for coming.